Hey everybody, welcome back once again to the Dancing Sober podcast. Thank you very much for coming here. And I want to ask you something this week. I want to ask each of you to please just share this podcast with somebody you think you might like to listen to this. Just send somebody the actual link so they can just click on the link and get to this podcast. And then don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I want to give a big thank you to our sponsor, MOVITA Juice Bar, MOVITAJuiceBar.com, where you can find all of their locations. You can find them also on your food ordering apps like Uber Eats, etc. Give it up for MOVITAJuiceBar.com. They only use good stuff in their ingredients. Want to give a shout out to PICARESCA Cafe, our sponsor, our coffee sponsor. PICARESCA Cafe is a small coffee shop located in Boyle Heights, across the street from the old Plaza del Sol, near the Sears building, and inside a little shopping mall. Go check out PICARESCA Cafe. Check them out on Instagram at picaresca.cafe. They are the sponsors that also roast our coffee here, so don't forget to get your Dancing Sober coffee. I'm going to be at the Caminarte this month, so in September. That will be next Friday. So whatever the date is there, I don't know. But yeah, I'll be there selling this coffee, so I hope to see you there. And yeah, I think that's all for the announcements. This week we have somebody that I've known for a while, and somebody in the music world that is also like a cultural ambassador for Los Angeles, saxophone player for Ozomatli, Uli Bella. Hey everybody, welcome back once again to the Dancing Sober podcast, and today we have in the studio LA cultural ambassador, saxophonist and multi-instrumentalist for Ozomatli. Give it up for Uli Bella.
Thank you for having me, homie.
Bella. Uli Bella, aquí
Bella,
está en la casa.
aunque no estamos tan bonitos. You know, but it's all good.
Bella is a pretty strong word.
Yeah.
Let's tone it down a little bit. Let's tone it down. That's cool. Bro, I mean, honestly, we haven't seen each other in a very long time. But we've known each other for a long time.
And we're in this reality of, you know, how like social media where, you know, I follow you and I see what you're doing and I see your movidas and shit. So it's like, it's that peripheral, you know what's kind of going on with them. Yeah. You know, that's cool, man. You know,
he's doing stuff.
Yeah. He's like out of jail.
Yeah. Exactly. I went to see. I was at the 6th Street Bridge opening, but you weren't there that day, so it was a.
Yeah, man, I
was like, I didn't get to see you.
Yeah,
but
I decided to go the next day and do donuts. You know. You know,
because you had to baptize.
I had to do something.
You had to baptize it one way or another.
Over there. That's why we can't have nice stuff.
That's why you can't have nice shit. It's fucking crazy out there. I love it though.
Yeah.
I mean, when the bridge was being built, I had a love-hate for it. I was like, oh, this fucking thing is coming in. It's fucking gonna ruin our neighborhood. It's just gonna fucking invade us and this and that. But when I'm on it, because I walk it a lot now, I ride it a lot on my bike. It's fucking beautiful, dude. No,
it's really nice. You know what I like about it too? And maybe it'll tone down the wildness part of it, but I like it that people are hanging out on it.
Yeah.
Like they're just loitering on that shit. And they're you know, just soaking in the vibe and soaking in the skyline and the weather.
Like when you go to the Bay Area and you go to the bridge, and you come to Boyle Heights, people get off, park their cars, and walk this fucking bridge.
Yeah.
At 2 a.m.
I can dig it, and it looks beautiful, and with the lights and shit, it's great.
It's nice. And
then hopefully the park in the bottom will be cool. You know, I mean, there's all kinds of plans for LA that way.
I think everything when it comes to parks and public spaces, everything always has like a heyday, and then it goes down and up. So I mean,
you got to think that they have plans for the whole what the river is going to go. Yeah. Like I even heard people were contemplating maybe the river is going to cut through LA downtown. Revert it. I was like, what? No. Like what?
That's crazy. Maybe they could do like an underground tunnel for that.
Know, but
I don't know.
But it's I'd be happy if they could just connect that one section of the river to downtown where you could ride your bike all the way.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you ever ridden the LA River. Yeah. You know, there's like a section where it's like the train part. It just stops off. Yeah. You know.
I know that they're working around where the Chinatown Park is, where the state park is.
Yeah.
I know that park is supposed to extend all the way to the river.
Right.
So that if you go to the park and you walk it at one end, it ends and there's just dirt.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all that dirt is going to eventually open up all the way to the river down into it. So you can be at that park and walk straight to the river.
Right.
Eventually. But anyways.
Hopefully maybe the earthquake will finally come and fuck all those plans up.
And change the whole trajectory of the water.
Hey, maybe it'll make houses affordable again. You know?
That'd be good too.
Yeah.
So welcome, bro. Let's talk a little bit about you and where you grew up and where you're from, and let's talk about Little Uli. Where was Little Uli first?
Okay, so the Scientology building off Sunset used to be a hospital, right? It used to be like the old Cedars, and so I was born there in Hollywood, and my family, my dad's from Spain. He was born in Barcelona but grew up in the northern part. My mom's from El DF, Ciudad Mexico, and they met in Grand Central Market, and we were first living in like Silver Lake area, Hollywood, for a while, and then the idea of buying a house is one of those that immigrant mentality, as they call it, we gotta vamos, So we ended up in Southeast LA, Bell, and moved out there, and so that's been where I pretty much grew up. But in some ways, it's interesting because I went to elementary school in Bell and started learning music because my dad played violin too, and my mom loved music. Oh, it still does, And so by third, fourth grade, I was already like learning clarinet, taking piano lessons, stuff like that. Even though I really wanted to play electric guitar, I was like, I want to play electric guitar. Like my dad was like,
third grade.
Or third, fourth grade.
Wow.
Fourth grade, fourth grade. I remember starting already, and my dad was like, "No, piano. It's the foundation. You gotta." And Dad was Pops was right. At the end of the day, it was a solid foundation, and so 1 through 5, I went to school in my neighborhood. 6th grade came around, and I was supposed to go to this junior high called Nimitz. And the thing was that back in the day, Nimitz had a shitty reputation, and all the bad kids on my block that I was homies with were all going there. So it was almost like my mom, in her wisdom, she kind of knew that if I went to that school, I would just be mixed up with those kids, and it would be on.
This was for high school, or
no? First, it was like 6th grade, so it's kind of early
when
junior
we called
high,
it junior high,
middle school, and so I ended up becoming a magnet kid, which was, I think, changed my whole perspective on things. Is about because here I am in this mostly Mexican neighborhood, with a scattering of the leftover whites that had never moved out, and a little bit of natives that were from that area. Obviously, like Bell Gardens has like a little native community too, and then very, very, very little, like no black kids, very little Asian kids. Now I'm jumping on a bus, and I'm picking up kids at Jefferson High. I'm going through South Central. I'm going through K-Town, Koreatown. I'm going through all these neighborhoods, just meeting all these kids from all kinds of different backgrounds. So the 6th grade I went to was like some weird school, It was like called Open School. And I walked in there like, what is this? Because there wasn't any desks in the classroom. There's a bunch of couches. It was just like, dude. I was just like, what is this? And that's where I met.
Start over and shit.
It was a trip, and it was like one of the first schools to be like sponsored by Apple Computers. So we got the first Macintoshes in there. I remember, and I remember like the daughter of the DA of LA was in my class. Wow. So it was like.
Where was it?
Ghetto kids and just all kinds of hood kids mixed with Valley kids, Hollywood Hill kids, and
sons and daughters of famous.
Yeah, and it was a trip. So, it really kind of it was like at first, obviously, culture shock, like, what? But then all of a sudden, I had friends all over the city. Like, I had a friend in off of what, like right next to the Coliseum. I had a friend in the, Studio City. I had a friend over there. I had a friend who lived off of Rampart. All of a sudden, I had like all these people spread around and of different cultures too. Because it's interesting. My first best friend at that time was this the homie Mario, who's still a friend. Obviously we've connected, and it's one of those things. We've been friends long enough where we've connected, got separated, reconnected. It's been that long. So I remember the first day going in class and just being like, who do I hang out with? And it was like that weird prison mentality. Oh, this dude's a Latino too, so I'm just gonna go sit by him, and a Nicaraguan brother. And I was just like, hey, what's up, man? So, but after that, all of a sudden, it opened everything up. I was going to bat mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs, and I was going to like people's parties and just so from there, open school, which is really trippy school. I went to John Burroughs, which is off of the Miracle Mile. And I was still getting bussed, and in that school, I continued to study music. That's when I started picking up the sax, started picking up the guitar, and that's that era of development where you start being really into music. At least I was like sixth grade on. I mean, I was into music 1 through 5 too, but I feel like there's that era between like middle school, junior high, high school, and then a little bit after your 20s where that music almost can define your whole life.
I was gonna say when at first you're listening to it, but then you're kind of like in it, or what do you think is the difference? Like, maybe
I'm like in the sense of like, all of a sudden I remember like getting into bands like in 6th grade, like, oh man, like what's up with that? I mean, I was kind of before too, because I remember liking Devo as a kid, and I still love Devo, but I remember like loving Kiss as a kid
and wanting to follow everything that they
you're just like, they look so cool. But then after 6th and 7th grade, I started getting into like actual bands and the scenes and whatever, and studying them, reading the lyrics and getting into what it meant, and that always complemented just my music education, because I was like, here I was studying classical music for the most part, Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, Rachmaninoff, you name it, like all these things, and then digging the music that I dig, and it just kind of like was a cool thing. And
who were the ones that you dug at that time? 6th grade, early on.
6th grader, I mean, you got to think it was that era. Obviously, like hip hop was a big deal, like.
I was born in 71. What year were you?
I was born in 75. So that year, I remember on the bus, there was 3 tapes that dominated. It was LL Cool J's Bigger and Differ, Run DMC's Raising Hell, and Beastie Boys' License to Ill. Those 3 tapes I remember dominated. Like, hey, who wants to listen to? I mean, we listened to other stuff too, but I remember those tapes dominated.
You be ill,
But then I remember getting into U2 in the 6th grade. I remember getting into like other bands, and other things, and yeah, it's a trip, and junior high, definitely. I when you meet older kids, they hip you to music. Hey man, check this band out. And back in that day, it was like all about tapes, Hey man, can I dub that album off of you with the double, remember? Or, whatever's in, but after junior high, after John Burroughs, that's where I met Justin and his brother.
Wow.
That's how long I've known that guy. Because his brother was an amazing guitar player, and at that point, I think he was just playing drums, but that's where I met the Pare family and a bunch of other people. And after that, junior high, I went to the High School for the Arts in Cal State LA.
Okay.
So that's a trippy thing about me, is that I grew up in this neighborhood, and for a lot of these kids, they're like, "Whatever happened to Uli? Did he move? No, he's right. He just I ended up going to different schools, and Bell High unfortunately didn't have a real music program anyway. So it was like, I mean, it would have been great to just walk to school, but the High School for the Arts was just,
those 3 schools are fucking amazing.
And the High School for the Arts was just like, I mean, it's a high school, and we were still using the college campus facilities. And mixing it up with college kids and really getting exposed to all kinds of music and all kinds of art, dance, visual, you name it, theater, and being able, and at that point I started getting into jazz a lot more, you know, and being in the jazz band, playing sax, trying to get better, learning the Charlie Parker stuff and learning all these other things, and the orchestra was amazing. You know, we were playing the Rite of Spring in high school already, Stravinsky, doing all this stuff, and then that's when I got introduced to like, you know, just the more experimental aspects of music, you know, like John Cage and Terry Riley and C. I remember our orchestra played it. I don't know if you know what that is. Terry Riley is this interesting composer where the piece, I don't know how many ideas. I'm just going to throw out a number. I think it's like 52 different little ideas, motifs. And what it is in the orchestra, like let's say if there's 30 people, you play the idea. Everyone starts on idea 1. But when you feel like it and when you want to, you can move on to the next one. So then it creates this thing, this weird effect that's amazing. And yeah, the piece could actually last for 6 hours if it wanted to. Wow. You know?
So anybody at any point can pick up any of the 52.
No, you don't skip ideas. You don't like go from one to the,
go from one
you go to the next one, you feel
so
like
if somebody moves slow.
Yeah, someone could just be on the first idea for an hour.
Damn.
And you know, but like usually you move on when you feel like it, you know,
and every time you play it, it's going to be different.
And so all these little different ideas, if you look it up, Terry Riley and C, it's an interesting piece, you know. But so yeah, we were exposed to like a lot of cool stuff in high school, and it was a super creative you know, environment, you know, for as a young adult, you know, and really lenient, almost to a fault, because I remember like kids being like, "Hey, I'm gonna use the bathroom," and like they'd be gone for like most of the class, and the teacher just didn't give a fuck, you know. I remember like there was one teacher that he would just be like, "Here's the test, yeah, here's the test, everybody," and he'd step out and go have a smoke, and be like, "Yo, what's the answer to 20, homie?" You know, like.
Wow. So this actually, I mean, it makes so much sense, and it kind of almost explains like how Ozomatli came to be. I mean, just the freedom of expression, the freedom of different cultures, and all this that you learned growing up from these different schools that you went to.
For sure. And still like really embracing my own roots, right? My own, like all the music.
Yeah, I mean, you accept a lot of stuff, but you don't.
Know, that
they also accept yours. So
yeah.
And
I think that in at Loxa was the first time I think I met Will Dog. Even Will Dog showed up because there was already a reputation. There was always jams going on, and all these kids would hook up. And I guess he showed up one time because I remember seeing him, like this white dude with long ass dreads with the bass in his back, and I was like, "Who the fuck is this dude?" And he's like, "Oh, he's trying to find a jam," you know. So post high school, I had shitty SATs, and I wasn't that motivated to just, you know. I actually did audition for 4 years and stuff, but
audition for bands and
no, like for like big colleges and stuff like that. And I ended up going to PCC, you know, and dude, like.
Dude, PCC, we've talked about this on this show before, because so many people and so many bands that are like playing now have come out of that program underneath Bobby
Bradford. Bobby Bradford's like he's like John the Baptist up in here. Like he's like the guy who sets, dude, like he not only like inspired me as a musician, but you know, philosophically, you know, like almost like, what do you got to expect? Like one of the most Bobby Bradford students will know this one, because it's like, I remember I went up to Bobby and I was like, "Yo, homie, like I really want to be a musician. Like I really feel like this is my calling. I've studied this all my life. You want to be a musician, huh? Guess what? Save your money." Like I was like, "Oh, that's your advice? Save my money?" You know? And then all of a sudden, as I became older and I realized what he was trying to say, because I remember even talking to him right when I signed the first Ozomatli album deal. He's like, "Don't now you don't go start spending that on dumb shit. Like, don't buy cars, don't buy like jewelry and just fancy clothes. You know, it's not gonna, you know. So that resonated un chingo with me, like a lot. And I remember like taking that money and buying a really nice saxophone, you know, and just investing in myself, you know. And not only that, but Bobby Bradford had tons of like stories. Him hanging out with Coltrane, him hanging out with so-and-so, him hanging with Ornette. And he's such a jazz legend already, like a local real, you know. So mad musicians kind of came out of his program. I mean, I can even go, you know. And that's where I started meeting a lot of the Yeska people, was through the jazz program at PCC. And there was also a philosophy teacher, Mr. Richards, that I really loved there, that really influenced me a lot too. And I met Walter and Anton at PCC, and then that's when I started getting into, you know, because I love jazz, and by that point I was super into punk, I was super into all kinds of rock and shit like that. I always dug reggae, but I never delved in it deep enough or past the obvious, you know? Your Bob Marleys, your whatevers, you know? And then this guy was like, hey, man, you want this band called Yeska? We play traditional ska. I was like, what? And he's like,
what's that
dude,
word?
all of a sudden, I was a deep dive into like what the Scotalites, Byron Lee, like Prince Buster, all Heptone, I mean, you know, all these groups, Toots, you name it, like all these things, Desmond Decker. All of a sudden I got super into like Jamaican music. And one of the things too that really kind of made me go, and it kind of, you know, and if I remember like starting with Yeska, and the first gig we ever did was, I did with them, was at the Hong Kong Cafe downstairs though. I played upstairs a lot. But I remember playing and just because I was used to punk shows and a lot of just like aggro energy, a lot of dudes in the front, just like, eh. And here I'm at the show and it's just like a beautiful mix of people and everyone's just dancing. And it was like, you know, just beautiful people in the front, beautiful ladies, like sharp dudes. And it just was a vibe. And I was just like, this is it. Like people just like having a really good time dancing, you know? And that mentality definitely crossed over to just what Ozomatli is, because from jump, our whole thing was like, we got to make the crowd dance. Whatever we play or whatever styles we mix, it's all about the dance. God of dance, Ozomatli, right? So after, you know, with the Yeska, I was in it, and for the time I was in it, I'm really proud of the, you know, because I wasn't even as long as some of these other guys were in it, but the time I was in it, we really did a lot of things for a band of just kids.
I saw you guys at the House of Blues with Tito Puente.
Dude, that was like a big ass gig for us, dude.
That was like my introduction to like a lot of things.
Dude, you know how much we fucking rehearsed for that one gig, dude? Because we were like, yo, we're opening up for the, you know, El Rey del Mambo. Like, we're like we can't be coming off. Sharp. We better be dope, look sharp, play sharp. And yeah, Yeska got to open up for the Scotalites. Yeska got to open up for the Desmond Decker. We got to Selector. All these legender bands. Was this your first
band that actually got like some kind of play or something?
In some ways, because before this, and like in high school, I was in little punk bands with the homies. You know, I remember we called ourselves Haymarket 8, High Grade. We switched names a bunch of times. But I remember the most we did with that, at least until I got kicked out, the most I did with that band was like play a couple coffee shops, and our big claim at that time was the Anti Club. Remember in downtown LA, the bar down there. Oh no, Al's Bar. I'm not the Anti Club. Al's Bar. Anti Club's off of Melrose. Yeah. I'm sorry. No, Al's Bar. And I remember
Al's Bar is legendary, man.
I was so young that I went in to play, and they kicked me out right after because you couldn't hang out there. But we were in a punk band, and at that point, you know, a lot of my influence at that point was like, as far as that band and that sound was like Sonic Youth, Fugazi, Swans, Cop Shoe Cop, Subhumans, Crass, like a lot of like just more hard edge and more experimental stuff, and the like we were into that. And I even remember like hearing the first Tool EP and being like, these vatos beat us to it, like, you know, like this was the sound we wanted, you know, like that type of thing. So yeah, I was in the punk bands and jamming with people on guitar, but with Yeska and then Ozomatli, it was like I was playing to my forte, which was sax and clarinet, you know, like. Whereas with guitar, it's weird. Like, I had formal training with almost all my instruments, and when I first started playing guitar, I considered taking classical guitar lessons, but part of me was like, I want to keep this informal. I just want to do this for fun. I don't want to take lessons. I want to learn punk songs, or want to learn Ramon songs in my bedroom, and just, you know, teach myself.
That different feeling.
Yeah, just like by ear, power chords, having fun, it's fun, you know? And not that I'm a very good guitarist at all, but I can keep a rhythm and I can learn some chords and I can do whatever's if needed as like a secondary instrument, you know, and bass. But so Yeska started playing, and then the roots, the beginnings of Ozomatli were kind of like starting to bubble. That's when like Will Dog was even in Yeska for a hot second. Oh, yeah. And Anton was the drummer. Fredo was in Yeska and Ozomatli too. And I mean, most people have heard the story, you know, the peace and justice thing, everybody meeting together to support that whole scene and everything. But it was funny because like Ozomatli and Yeska, like we would do gigs together at the Viper Room. So I would play twice, you know. And I remember one time Yeska completely like blew Ozo out of the water. Wow. And then Dog was all, you know how Dog is. He got super competitive. And he called Justin like, hey man, what can we do to smoke these fools? And that's where the whole idea and concept of the samba came. Like when we started playing the walking in and walking out. Yeah. It was the whole idea. It wasn't like on some hippie trippy like, hey, we're all together. No, it was like, yo, we're gonna blow you away.
Let's take.
And then it grew into that though. It grew into like more of like breaking down the audience to the crowd and just being immersed in the crowd. But the initial like roots of that, of the whole samba thing, was more a competitive, like, you know, because you've been in a band, you know, it's not like you hate other bands or hate other dudes in bands. Maybe you do, but but there is that drive. At least I always had that kind of thing, like we got to blow them away. We got to put up the show. We got to do give it our all, you know. We can't come soft, you know. So
I was in a band, but it was like a really short-lived period, and I had all kinds of other things. I was in theater and doing other things, and I just happened to fall into Slow Rider for like those 2 years that were fucking magical to me. But I never had, I always felt different than the actual musicians, because I mean, fucking musicians, all of you guys were fucking amazing. And then I was brand new to the music scene.
Right.
I was brand new to the music scene, and I was blown away by it. And also, when I first started going to Ozomatli shows, I had that first feeling that you had when you went to those shows, where I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, I came from the backyard fucking DJ parties, and then going to these band things where like, oh, people are vibing. It's different. You know, it's a good vibe. So, but I did always feel like a little bit of an outsider, because I wasn't a musician. And musicians, you guys you do have a different drive, and it's fucking amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's to dedicate oneself to music, it's a commitment. And you know, I mean, it could be a hobby. I always tell people, you don't have to play professionally. You can always love music, playing music, just to love playing it, you know. Sometimes I even envy people who can still play. No, I'm serious, dude. Like, you know, there's like rich ass dudes that are like, I think I'm gonna do a gig around. You know, no, I need a gig, homie. I'm not. You know what I'm saying? I'm hustling. You know. But yeah, you know, it's a commitment, and in some ways, that like it's all I ever wanted to do. I always wanted to be a musician. and I'm lucky, dog. I am. It's a because it's not like I'm the best saxophonist or I'm not the best any of this. You know, it's a combination of things.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, definitely.
Like at the end of the day, I was really good at clarinet. Yeah, I used to play like the Youth Philharmonic, LA Philharmonic, first clarinet. Like I was like a little badass cat for a hot second. But look, let me tell you, there's 1,000 other badass cats right behind you that can play better or as good or better than you.
I learned that after being in the music scene that there's a million talented people.
There's millions, dog. And even in high school, I remember there's people that went to Juilliard and went to all these crazy places. But if you ask them what they're doing now, it's not music. So it's
different things that just don't allow them to move whatever the step forward. Or maybe they don't want to sometimes.
Or maybe they don't want to. Or it's just too much. Like the grind of being on the road.
Yeah.
The stage fright. Drugs, abusing yourself, not being able to honor commitments,
relationships,
being a dickhead, being an asshole. Unless you're fucking Prince or something, no one's gonna stand for that shit.
The game. If you're
running you're like a dude that could, like, yo, I'm the man, or like I'm the, the meta, whatever. Like, if you can back it up, maybe people will like tolerate you. But, I've met so many people that were amazing musicians, but they're assholes. And then no one wants to work with them. I'd rather work with someone who's not as good, but is cool than someone who spend
a lot of time with them.
Yeah, you're going to be stuck in a van with them, and here's a person that's like just mad toxic. It's like, dude, get out of here, So it's a combination of things. It's not just talent. It's not just whether you can play your instrument. It's not just your looks. But it's a combination of all these things. So whether or not you could probably be a successful musician, and also just the hustle that dude. Like when Ozomatli, when we were on some like we want blood mode. I remember like we would play 3 or 4 gigs a day. Like be like we're gonna play in the morning, play in the afternoon, play at night. Like we're just gonna we would call. There was that Regeneracion Zach spot in Highland Park. We'd call that spot because Lalo was up in there in that part of that mix, and we're like, yo man, I heard Rage Against the Machine and all these. Ozo wants to play too. Well, we already have the stage set up, and it's going to be impossible to. Well, how about is it cool if between bands we set up on the other side of the venue? Just on the floor, not even on the stage. And while the other bands are setting up, we'll play. I remember doing that. Like, dude, like when you got that kind of like, that's why I tell kids, take advantage of every moment you can to play live.
Yeah.
It's a coffee shop, open mic, a party, whatever. It's just take advantage of it. Like, go for it, And, we were really persistent and doing crazy shit. Like play a show in Pomona and then get in a van, drive all night to be in Watsonville in the morning at like 8 or 9 in the morning to play for the Strawberry Workers, Yeah.
I was going to say earlier that you guys always walked into the room with fucking energy to feed everybody else. Like you guys always walked in, and I'm not saying at a gig. Like when you guys came to our practices, you'd walk in, you'd be like, here's some energy, you guys. Let's let's do some shit. No matter what, you guys always had that drive, and when you showed up to play, you showed up with that kind of energy as well. I mean, the few times that I saw you. Now, besides them, like I know that people have heard the story a lot about the origins of Ozomatli at the
Peace and Justice
Center. Was there a moment or like a time that you remember that you had been playing and you were like, fuck, this is actually going somewhere. Let's fucking organize. Because you had played in a few bands and, it was always for fun. Was there a switch when you said, all right, we need to turn this switch on. We need to sign some contracts,
Oh, well, I do remember. It's funny because I do remember we had this meeting where it was like, do people want to make Ozo the main commitment? And I remember like a bunch. Well, I was in Jessica too at the time, so I was just kind of like a little bit wishy-washy. I was like, well, I don't know, because my whole thing was like, whatever
you want to play,
whatever pops too, wherever the love is, that's where I'm gonna go. And initially, I had thought that Jessica did ended up doing their own thing and being like pretty successful, but then they ended up breaking up anyway. So Ozo, it's like, man, we're 20 something years strong now at this point,
That's
and it's crazy. Bands
amazing,
don't
dude.
I mean, think about
No,
it.
it's
Like, how many
amazing.
bands in this time that
It's amazing.
like,
dude.
there's bands that last 2 years, there's bands 5 years, 10
Yeah.
years,
2 gigs.
15, 2 gigs, 20 years, and we're going into like Los Lobos territory, and we're going into these bands that are like,
no, you are there. Yeah, you're
yeah,
there.
at this point, we've paid our dues and then some.
Yeah.
So, there was that moment where, I think for me especially, the moment where I was like, okay, this is real, like really real, was when I quit my job and dedicated completely everything 100% to music, and took academic leave because after PCC I ended up going to Cal State Long Beach. I went to Cal State Long because I had spent so much of my life in Cal State LA. I was like, I gotta get a switch of scenery.
Got it.
And I auditioned for a bunch of schools, and I got into a bunch of schools like SC, UCLA, but even with scholarships, it was way too expensive.
Yeah.
So Long Beach at the time was like, we'll give you a free ride if you want to play here. And I was like, yeah,
Sick.
that sounds good with me, dude. Like, I'm down. And I met some cool people at Long Beach too, and I definitely spent a lot of time woodshedding, as the musicians call it, putting in the practice, trying to do 5 to 6 hours a day of practicing, whether not obviously, like, I wouldn't be like one of those guys, I practice 6 hours straight. No, I would do like, an hour in the morning, hour in the afternoon, maybe a couple hours later, play with other people. I was always about jamming with people. And the program there was very isolated to the rest of the campus. So it kind of gave this kind of thing where you're just kind of working on your own shit a lot. But I remember telling my last jury, what they called, where you play your piece at the end of the year to get a grade or whatever. And I remember telling them, yeah, so this band I'm in, we're going to be touring a lot now, and I just want to take academic leave for now, Okay, well, we'll always be here for you, Uli, It's like, fuck, I never went back, dog. That was it, And I don't, and, if I had to go back to school, it wouldn't be for music now at this point.
Yeah,
I would just try to learn something new.
Yeah, just to finish, get the piece of paper or
whatever,
something.
Just to like, but or just to take classes and
become
learn
an
something.
author. Right? No, I mean, why not?
But yeah.
You guys have definitely, I mean, speaking of like where you're at now and paid your dues, fuck, so many things that you've done to like push through, and a lot of it is just pushing through, right? Just fucking like push through this, push through that. So by doing so, I've always wanted to give you guys your flowers as like for the doors that you opened, for other people, because I mean, not that it's easy by any means nowadays, but there are a lot more doors or opportunities to knock at, right? For the younger bands right now. So like, or how do you feel about, that, like the whole like doors opening and
Well, every band is going to have their own struggles and their own things, and they're going to have to deal with their own, like, battles. But the same way people could see Ozomatli is probably the same way I see bands like Los Lobos, bands like Fishbone, bands like, other, like, people like Santana that did monumental shit before us. And, Richie Valens, songs that were because back in our day, like, to hear a song on a commercial radio that was Spanish,
when you guys came out,
it's like,
K-Rock.
oh, dude, that was like such a big
Yeah.
deal. Like, all of a sudden,
Huge.
they're playing Como Ves on K-Rock, and I remember we were on the road during that summer, hard. And when we came back, it was like our hometown show was at the Santa Monica Pier. And they had been playing us on K-Rock a lot, and I remember how massive that show was. Like, the whole pier was bouncing, and I was just like, damn, that's crazy. Ozomatli is like, we've really put in a lot of work. We've gone through a lot of drama. We've gone through a lot of life experiences together, and these dudes are like my family at this point. It's like, sometimes I hang out with these dudes more than I hang out with my family.
Yeah, of course.
Through the years, but at this point, we're grown ass men at this point that like have had kids or haven't had kids, who have gone through life experiences. But that's why sometimes when people ask me, like, to me, Yeah, the Grammys, the Billboard Awards, all the tours, the cultural ambassador stuff, all the places we played with people that we admired, legends that we've shared the stage with or recorded with. All that shit's dope. But the biggest achievement is that we're still together. Like, because that's always been that was the running joke with us. Yeah. It's like Ozomatli is the longest relationship any one of us has ever been in. Like, because it's, you know, like, it's outlived marriages, it's outlived relationships, it's outlived, like, you know, different people through the band, and the crazy shit is that the
life cycles, man.
You know, R.I.P. Crunchy, you know, like people who were our brothers, and our sisters, and people that like mean a lot to us that have come in and out of Ozomatli. That it's nuts. So it's quite an accomplishment that we can still kick it. We can have dinner together, make each other laugh, and we've been together long enough that we have developed the skills to have a healthy way to resolve conflict.
That's important.
I
remember the first time I saw you guys in a meeting with your manager. I don't know if it was when we were touring with you or when we were just in the same room, but I remember you guys had a meeting with your manager, and we were all like, wow, look at the way they handle things. You know, it was impressive. I mean, at a young age, I was just impressed by the way that your whole machine was being run, right? And it wasn't like a machine, like a drill machine. It was just like, it was a well-functioning family.
Yeah, and at that point, I think it was Amy. Amy was our manager, Amy B. And, you know, she worked her ass off. Ozomatli was her life. You know what I mean? And so, you know, it's crazy. All the, you know, sometimes, man, we've done so much shit and we've met so many people that I sometimes even forget about. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, we did do that shit.
I want to bring up, speaking of that, the first time that I saw you guys on fucking the Super Bowl. Didn't you guys play in Super Bowl Sunday once? Like at an actual Super Bowl Sunday event?
Yes.
Yeah, it was. Yes. I was watching the Super Bowl halftime. They cut to a live event.
Oh,
and
really?
You guys were fucking playing there.
Yeah. Okay, so
what the fuck?
I think we got to play the Super Bowl. I want to say maybe twice.
That was a trip.
Or actually maybe 3 times. But I think the first time was the coolest because it was Black Crowes. I want to say us. And Isaac Hayes.
Oh, I remember Ice Cube for some reason.
Maybe that was a different one. Maybe that was a different one.
Okay.
But
Isaac Hayes, wow.
Yeah, and I remember they giving us all tickets, and there was a group of us that were like, "Man, fuck the Super Bowl. Let's sell these shits in the parking lot." And then there was Crunchy, R.I.P. It was like, "No, man, this is a once in a life. I'm going in, man. I'm gonna watch the game, dude." So it was like, I think me and Andy, the drummer, and I think, you know, we were like, "Fuck this, man. Let's go sell it." And I remember just being in the hotel room, counting our cash, watching the Super Bowl on TV. Like, yeah, man. See, man, we didn't miss nothing. It's a boring ass game, you know. Like, but that, you know,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, like, and you know, one time even we played at a halftime at an NFL game in Chicago, which was a trip, you know. Yeah, so you know, we've been thrown in some crazy.
Then you guys
situations.
started popping up in movies like all over.
Well, yeah, they played they licensed a lot of our music, you know, through the years, and then there was that whole point in Ozo's career where in the beginning, before we got signed, where we were like doing residencies. You know, at the Viper Room, at the Dragonfly, at the Opium Den. I don't know if people remember that spot. It used to be, I think, called the Gaslight. And through these residencies, we caught a lot of buzz, dude. Like, it was like one of those things, especially I remember at the Opium Den. It's like every week all these Hollywood people would be up in there. Like, I have this crazy memory of walking up to the door and like I just smoked a joint or something, and I see this dude arguing with the door guy, and he had this really beautiful black lady with him, and I was just like, who's this lady, you know? But I was like, who's this dude arguing? And I walked up, and it was Bill Maher arguing with the door guy to let him in, but we were completely dude. Those shows were consistently so packed that the fire department used to come to our shows like every other week because they would overcapacitate that shit. The fire department would come and shut the shit down.
Wow.
It was nuts. It was nuts. I remember seeing Selma Hayek at the shows, Elisa Milano, like all kinds of different actors. And that's where one of the hookups, I think Drew Barrymore, I don't know if she saw us at one of these spots or something like that, but you know, we ended up being in that movie Never Been Kissed, you know, which is on Disney Plus now. It's crazy. But there was a hot second where we could be
your music was popping up
we
everywhere.
could be anywhere in the Midwest where no one knew who the fuck Ozomatli was, and they'd be like, "Who are you?" I'd be like, "Yo, we're the band from Never Been Kissed, yo." Remember when she eats a pot brownie? And they'd be like, "Oh yeah," because that movie was really fucking popular for that hot second, you know. So yeah, it felt like a hot second that Ozomatli was everywhere, you know. We were just we were working our asses off. I mean, yo, there was a point we were on the road 8 months out of the year, close to it, man. Yeah. We were living out of a bag. We were just grinding. You guys
work hard.
Yeah.
How many albums have you guys put out now? I mean, you recently released Marching On, which was your latest album.
Yeah. I want to say it's like, I don't know how, 8 or 9 10 records. Shit, I don't even know. I can't. You know, I got to look it up. I mean, sure, if I start naming all the records, we can count it. But you know, between records, EPs.
Do you have a favorite?
Well, everybody loves the first one.
Everybody loves the first.
Everyone will always love the first one, and I'm like that too with other bands.
There's an energy about it. You know, it's fucking beautiful.
And it was groundbreaking for. I mean, even though I don't want to toot my own horn type shit, but we were doing shit as kids, mixing things that other people hadn't done yet, you know? Yeah. Like mixing the Spanish and the English in a certain way that was very, very unique to LA and to us.
And you guys were just like so good.
You know, the cumbia, the reggae, like mixing that up. And this is way before like everyone knew what cumbia was. You know, of course our parents knew what the fuck cumbia was. The neighborhood parties knew what the cumbia was, but the West Side did not know what the fuck cumbia was, you know, and just all these other, you know, places, you know. So, yeah, and you know, at that point, you know, all of us were really into like Eddie Palmieri, Bob Marley, Public Enemy, just like all these like also revolutionary artists that, you know, my whole thing was like, I loved punk, but the energy of punk is very, you know, aggro in a lot of ways, which I mean, I appreciate, I like it, you know. But there's a whole other message music that, whether it's your Bob Marleys with your Felas, you know, Mano Chao, whatever, that's kind of more about dancing, and they're dropping, you know, real conscious shit.
Some kind of knowledge,
Yeah, so I took, you know, I think we took our cues a lot from that, you know.
Yeah. It was a beautiful scene back then, man.
Yeah, but so the first album, it's amazing. But I have to say, Street Signs is probably my second favorite sign.
And Embrace the Chaos too.
And Embrace the Chaos,
And the fact that it landed
on 9/11.
9/11. I was mind blown that day, all day, just like.
Oh yeah, that was crazy because I remember waking up in Detroit and it being like, our album's gonna drop today, cool man, and I just hearing like dudes on the bus like, hey man, you're not gonna believe this shit. And like,
and the name of the album,
Embrace the Chaos.
Embrace the Chaos.
Yeah, it was almost prophetic.
What the fuck?
And there's a cut too in the first record too, Coming War, that the lyrics are super prophetic too. Like people were like, people brought it up once, and also Justin's verse on Saturday Night, super prophetic. 2021, or he said something like, you know, shit's gonna collapse. I don't know what the fuck he said on that thing, but
that's one of those things that we were talking about before the show, where you don't know how the fucking things connect. But,
right.
But things just happen and they bubble.
But Street Signs was particularly, I love that album because we really drew from like influences out, because that's the thing. LA, sure, we have tons of cultures, tons of things to draw from, influences. Then we started touring nationally, so all of a sudden we're getting, you know, music from New York, music from Chicago, Minneapolis, New Orleans, the second line thing. then we start traveling the world, and we're like all of a sudden picking up, you know, music from all around the world. So on that album in particular, the North African Arabic sound, Oriental sound, as they call it, like, was really, really influencing us, you know.
Yeah.
And I believe that's the record that we ended up actually recording Eri Pamieri on. Like that, we had always thought he was the, you know, the kitty's titty, man. That guy is like the dopest. And to actually get him on the album was like, that was like another level for us, you know. So Street Signs, but you know, on all the albums there's certain tracks that I like a lot, you know, and just like kids, you know, and then they have their shitty qualities too.
Yeah, but those 3 albums are amazing. I mean, I listen to everything even still to this day, the new stuff, but those 3 albums still have like a big, because they kind of define my era back then myself, right? They define everything back then. But to switch gears a little bit, you've been a part of the jiu-jitsu community for a while now too, right? You still do that?
Yeah. So that journey started in 2001-ish. Raka from the Dilated Peoples.
Oh shit!
Like I was already obviously had been invested in music, and just I had, as a little kid, I was in kung fu classes, and I would always like martial arts and stuff like that. But you know,
The Last Dragon,
you know, all that stuff, you know, yeah, Bruce Leroy.
Show enough.
And but at a certain point, I felt like I wanted to learn something new in life, or just something. And I was just contemplating all kinds of different things. And then one time, Raka was just like, "Hey man, you should try jiu-jitsu, man. You should try that." And I was like, "Jiu-jitsu, dude? Like, I'm not really a tough guy like that. I mean, I've always been tall, so people didn't really fuck with me that much. But like, I just never had that mentality, you know." And he was like, "Dude, the first class is free. It's an introduction. It's at Gracie Academy." At that point, like, Gracie already had like this legend status, and part of me was like, dude, I don't know, because I might get racked. I don't know what to expect. They just beat you up. And
how old were you when you started?
I don't remember, but it was I don't know how old I was in 2001, whatever. But I almost thought about it like this: like, even if you didn't play guitar, and if Jimi Hendrix came up to you and was like, "Hey man, you want to give you a guitar lesson?" You would be like, "Yeah, dude." You know, like, so I was just like, I'm gonna go. I showed up, took the intro. They teach you only like a couple little things, but right when you get into it, it almost feels like this is like magic, bro. Like, whoa, like using reason and leverage, you know, like getting out of these certain positions, like, wow. So that's how it started, and I just stuck with it, man. Like, I never put too much pressure on myself about like, oh, I'm gonna be a black belt, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna compete, I'm gonna, you know, like, because I was always working on weekends, and most of those competitions are on weekends, and part of me is like, I don't want to get hurt. Like, jiu-jitsu doesn't pay the bills, dude. You know,
That's right.
Like, last thing I need, you know,
Broken
I don't need
finger.
to prove it. Like, I almost took it like almost like how people take yoga. It's like your own personal journey into that, you know, like how is good or if you plateau or whatever. I just was never quitting. I was just like, I'm gonna continue. So there was times where I might take only a lesson like once every 3 weeks, or do this, but I kept going. As I kept going, and as I got better at it and whatever, the intensity of it, and you know, just in the training and just in learning it and mixing it up with other people, you get you know, it gets more intense, because just to get to you, because in jiu-jitsu it's white, blue, purple, brown, black. You know, you could be white. Back in when I started training, there wasn't like a test or you know, ceremony to promote you. It was just like whenever the dude felt like, okay, and then they would, you know, one day they would just give it to you, and you'd be like, oh dang,
I did that.
you know. So from white to blue it's a long time for some people, for most people, and it's such a long time that most people actually quit once they get into blue belt. It's kind of like a, you know, one of those things in the jiu-jitsu community, the blue belts that quit. Then once I was in blue belt, I felt like good about it. That's the other thing. You get so immersed in the world of jiu-jitsu, like you're watching videos about it, your magazines and reading all the books by all the different dudes and trying to learn moves and da 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 da. And so as blue belt, purple belt, and by this point I had trained already with like all the younger brothers of the Gracies, Halleck,
Wow.
Hedon, Hinner. I had gotten the opportunity to take seminars with the grandfather, Helio, Hickson, which is like the champion of the family. So, it took a lot as far as just my dedication to it, just because I loved it. I felt it was like a beautiful combination of mind chess and physicality, and 16 years later, I finally got my black belt. Where it was like, again, it was just like
16 years.
16. I could have been a doctor, homie. Like I could have like invested in all kinds
Well,
of,
not with one training a week.
but like I'm saying,
Yeah,
like you
yeah.
invest that much time.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
that was the thing. One time a week was like once when I was barely starting and all this, but then it got to a point where I was training like 3-4 times a week, and whether it's with homies or that was the other thing. It's like all of a sudden I started like this, backyard jiu-jitsu club. We called it the Ghetto Dojo. We still call it Ghetto Dojo, and in that environment, my whole thing was like, let's keep jiu-jitsu fun.
Yeah.
Like, let's all hang out, throw the mats, and it not be so serious. Like, because sometimes especially when you roll with somebody new or someone really spazzy, it's like, yo, bro, this shit ain't the kumite. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we can get out of this both alive. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes it can be extreme. And that's the thing with jiu-jitsu is that it gives you that ability to turn it up to 10 or turn it up to only 5 or 3 or 4, whatever. You could go hard and really want to hurt somebody, or you could just have fun with it and catch and release. Oh, I got you. Okay, keep going, bro. Like, let's keep moving, that flow. So that was the cool thing about having our own mats at home, and all the dudes that were Rio, Alan, Steve, Alvin, all these dudes that would just show up. And then we would get people like Fish to come down from Fishbone who trained jiu-jitsu too. We got like legends like Chris Hodder one time to show up, and Halleck one time showed up.
Do you think there's something that you could name that was like something that you learned during this whole thing that you didn't have before that you have now?
As far as?
I mean, something philosophical or something.
Well, you mean as far as into learning jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Like, well, once you learn jiu-jitsu, on some, just it gives you a certain confidence in the sense of like, hey, yo, if somebody really wants to step to me, at least I'm not planless. I got a plan here. How to deal with this, whether it escalates heavy or not. So in that, it gives you a certain kind of like calmness that like I don't feel nervous when I'm dealing with certain angry people. Like, all right, it's all good, dude. Maybe you're having a bad day. Because if they step and all of a sudden shit might get crazy, I'm not saying that like, because this isn't, this is reality. I could be like the biggest black belt. If some dude sucker punches you or 2 dudes attack you, this isn't ninja illusions here. Like, you're still vulnerable. Yeah. That's one thing too that I learned even after being a black belt. I'm not that tough. And there's a lot of tougher, just like music, there's a lot of dudes that are way tougher than you. And you never know how things can go. And we're really delicate when it comes down to it. As a human, as a body.
Oh, yeah, we're breakable.
We're really delicate. It doesn't take that much force to, like, sometimes break certain things. So, the one thing that I would say philosophically is similar to music, though, is that this is your path. You're going to get as good as you put into it in the practice of it. And having fun is really important. And... I guess I'm trying to think of what other kind of like tie-in I can do to it, just being patient with the process, Yeah.
Let the process be the process.
Yeah, because it's like if you start belt chasing, you're gonna drive yourself nuts. If you start comparing yourself to other dudes, you're gonna drive yourself nuts. You know,
That's good advice in general.
yeah, you're just gonna drive yourself nuts. If you if you try to learn all the latest trendy moves and not master your basics, you're gonna go nuts. You know, it's kind of like music too.
So 25 years plus, I mean 20 plus years in Ozomatli, plus all the other years of playing music and everything that you've been through as a group and yourself as a human individually. Now where do you see yourself in the future? Do you have any plans away from the band, or is everything like still like the band moving forward?
Well, the band is definitely important to me, and maintaining, you know, the life of Ozomatli, because I tell the guys all the time, you know, life is short, man. Shit can change in a second, and this could all die. I mean, that's always been my mentality, even before, you know, because again, like bands can come and go, and it's not like, you know, Ozomatli hasn't almost broken up or almost fell apart. We've been through that. So, like, loving the moment, appreciating the moment, you know. Personally, yeah, like a lot of things have been, you know, obviously like with the pandemic, you know, I had to deal with like family and hospice. Right now I'm dealing with my mom, like I'm caretaking my mom, which is a lot of work, you know. Life comes out, you know, and sometimes it's really, really overwhelming, man. Like, oh man, like how am I going to get through this? How am I going to do this? So in some ways, Ozomatli and playing music is like oasis for me. Like, oh yeah, like I can actually like do something artistic and whatever, you know.
It's your meditation. It's your,
for sure. Yeah, it's
oasis is a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah. Something I feel free, and another thing that's kind of similar to jiu-jitsu is that when you're in the middle of music or in your middle of rolling or whatever, time stops. You're just in that moment. You're just like, you're not worried about like your bills, your family, whatever problems are going on in the world. You're just living the moment. And so I guess my thing is just living, dog, like living and spreading love, compassion, empathy, supporting the new generation any way I can, you know, like.
Do you have any projects like that?
As far as like
any new generation music that you
well, I mean, I try to make myself available, you know, to like just recently I played a gig with this band called the Loving Arms, which they're like a young group, and they're kind of part of that whole you know, like the new Chicano soul movement a little bit, but they're not really that. They're, you know, but I can definitely tell they take their cues from like bands that love to write songs. Their harmonies are cool, you know, like Beatles and stuff like that. And you know that billiard spot right off of First across the street from Jim's?
Yeah, it's popping now.
Yeah, I just played a gig with them, you know, because I recorded with them, because I met them. I met one of the dudes at the Bell Brewery spot, Border X, and he was like, dude, would you be interested in recording with me? I was like, yeah, I'll record with you, you know, like, let's do this, you know. And the way I see it is like, even if they want to give me money, I'm like, just buy me a burrito, dude. It's all good, you know. like I'm into that in the sense that I like it, being around people that are not jaded about music yet, and they're in the grind, in the trenches of like where I remember, like, yeah, that was fun. These are a good era, and you know, it was a fun show. You know, I played the 3 songs that I recorded with them and another trumpet player homie. So, yeah, like. You know, anything like that, like I'm into it, you know, like.
Speaking of recording with other bands, when you recorded with Slow Rider, my favorite moment then and still now when I listen to it is you and John Wall with the alternating sax.
Oh, right. Shout out to John, man.
Amazing. I love hearing that whole thing.
Yeah. And, you know, that was a golden era, because me and Will Dog at the time, we had like these you know, these ambitions of like becoming producers too, you know. And we had produced Slow Rider, we produced Blues Experiment, we produced Wozani.
Oh, Wozani.
Yeah, and we produced all these
amazing,
groups,
dude. I fucking loved Wozani.
It was super fun because, you know, when you for us it was like we took our cues from our first producer T-Ray, that you just immerse yourself in that other band. You know, like Slow Rider was our life for that little, you know, that time we were recording with you guys and being whatever, and trying to make it dope, you know. Those rehearsals, the metronome, the click track, Little Hitler, remember that? For people who don't know, it's like we were really big into like whipping drummers into shape, and the drummer Mo, Big Mo is awesome. But we would fucking break out the click track and be like, okay, we're all playing to this click track really loud. And instead of the click, that tick, 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 there was this one mode where it would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we ended up calling the metronome Little Hitler. You know, but you know, that was a good time, and I'm really proud of all the work we did, you know, because those recordings, that Blues Experiment record, Masaya, the Slow Rider record, it came out
still
dope.
Hold up.
It came out dope.
They still hold up.
Yeah, and it has a good energy. Yeah. Sometimes I even I'll see people be like, you know, talk about all those bands, you know, like on some like legend shit, you know. So it's like interesting, you know.
Yeah. Well, we're winding down to the last minutes here, and real quick, just do you have can people follow you on Instagram or?
Yeah, Uli Bella. I'm on Instagram.
Uli Bella on Instagram.
On at Ozomatli. I also try to do. I haven't been doing it lately just because, you know, I've been a little overwhelmed. But I do a little reggae dub show on. I call it the quarantine dub session because I started it during. Yeah. And that shit's been already
pretty popular.
That's been going for like over 2 years now, and you know, there's definitely fans of it. I mostly played, you know, music from the island and all those great dub masters, King Tubby, Augustus Pablo, Scientists, you name it. Like, I'm always playing cuts and doing my thing over it, you know, and just playing music, man, you know.
Any chances that you're gonna bring back Taco Tuesdays?
Yeah, you know, people love that, and I love doing it, but you know, obviously the pandemic really put an end to that one. Yeah. Because for people who don't know, I did this thing called Taco Tuesdays with Uli, where I got fans to let me know what their favorite taco spot was.
You would find a real Ozo head.
I would go to their house, and we rented
a fresh ride.
Oh yeah, dude. Like, I've never had a nice car in my life. Like, I always had, like, for me, as long as it had a good radio, a good stereo in it, and it got me to point A to point B. So I'm like, you know, rolling clunky Honda Civics and shit like that. But driving around in those really nice Impalas, you know, all of a sudden people are rubbernecking, nice car, dude. You know, like, dang, I never got this kind of energy ever in my life. But I pull up to their house, I pick them up.
This is a fan, like
a fan.
Ozo real fan. You would pick them up,
and then I drive them to their favorite taco spot.
Tacos, yeah.
And then I would pay for the tacos, and we would sit around and we'd eat the tacos and have a good one, you know.
Yeah. Maybe that's something you can work with our producers here.
Yeah, no. So it was a good, you know, it was a good thing for a while, you know. And they're on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it was a good idea, but you know, that took the back seat.
Yeah,
kind of hard.
Is there anything that I haven't brought up that you would like to talk about?
Well, I mean, you know, our new album, Marching On, for sure. It just dropped July 15th, so a couple months ago, and you know, the crazy part about that album is that we were actually recording it at Sonic Ranch near El Paso. It was like one of those live-in studios where you stay on the compound. And right when we were recording that's where the beginnings of COVID were going on. Wow. And, you know, at that point, you know, we're recording this and we're like, man, it's just going to be SARS part 2, homie, just swine flu and shit. You know, like, forget it. It's all good. And then when the shit really hit the fan, we were still recording parts like at our houses and in other little tiny studios. So it took a lot as far as effort and with guys in the band working on it to like get it all together. David, our producer, David Garza. And when we finally had it finished, it was like one of those things where it's like, should we release it now when we can't tour on it? Like, nah, we gotta wait. So we did the whole singles game for a long time. And on that album in particular, you know, a lot of things came to fruition that I was like, dang, it finally came through. Like, one perfect example was like, you know, there's this song called Mi Destino that has Gabby Moreno on it. And we were working on it. And then we were like, yo, you know, who else could we get on this album? It's like, for years, people would always talk about, hey, why don't you ever collaborate with Cypress Hill? We'd be like, oh, that'd be cool. That, you know, that would be cool. Like, but it never happened. Obviously, we had played shows together and whatever. And when we were on this phone call, this conference call, they're like, what about, you know, Be Real? And I was just like, you know what? Maybe I just cold message this dude. And I went into his DM in Instagram. And y'all know, when people go into your DM and Instagram, most of the time you're like, who is this clown? Fuck this dude. Like, I don't even know this dude.
No blue check marks.
No, like, who is it? Like, you know, he responded. He'd love to. And then all of a sudden, the machine, you know, took over. And, dude, we got Be Real on the track. And then there was another cut called Fellas that we got Lisa on it and JJ Fad.
That's
JJ
crazy,
Fad
dude.
had not been in the studio for over 20 years or something like that. And this was our first time that they'd been in the studio again.
Wow.
So there's a lot of cool things like that on this album. We're really proud of it. So if you guys want to check out what Ozomatli sounds like now, check out Marching On. And also, you know, Ozomatli.com. We're on Instagram. We're on every social media bullshit. And, you know, come through to see a show.
Yeah, I think Be Real being down is a testament to you guys' multiple decades of work.
Right,
you know,
right.
and you guys put in the grind. We usually end this show with a question. It's a very vague question. And I ask if you try to answer this in one sentence. And if somebody from another planet or another world or another being came down and started to see like all of your work and everything that you've done and was just blown away by you and your presence and everything you do, and they just asked simply, how do you do it? How would you answer that? Uli Bella, how do you do it?
As far as my work is concerned, or just living, or just being a person?
How do you do it? That's the only question. You could answer any way you want.
You'd be like, I do it like this.
That's it.
We'll just start dancing and shit. Just like, I do it like this. You know?
We'll take that as an answer. Oh, Uli, thanks a lot. I really appreciate you taking the time to come out here to the west side and spend some time with me.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Rafa.
Hopefully we'll get another
Good luck
chance
with
to do
everything,
this.
man.
Gracias.
Thank you, dude. And thank you for having me. Thank you, everybody out there.
Let's bring back Taco Tuesdays.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys next week.